Welcome to Teams Transformed, the podcast for people who want to see real team transformation.
For courageous coaches, curious leaders, and anyone passionate about unlocking the true power of teams.
We're your hosts, Georgina
and Allard,
here to journey with you through transformational insights on how to coach teams with presence, depth, and emergence.
Let's explore not just the tools, but the art of transforming teams.
Hello, in episode 2, we will discuss You Are a Magician and the Magic of You. We're going to be exploring the power of your way of being over tools and exercises and what supports you in bringing that forward.
Good to see you again, and welcome back, everyone, for episode 2, which we've called You Are the Magician. And I really, really like that title. And I know, Georgina, I remember a story you once told me, a story that's at the origin of that expression of, oh my God, you are magic. You are a magician. Can you tell me that story again, please? I really love that.
I thought it was a wonderful story because it really speaks to the mystery of and working with the mysterious and what can happen in team coaching. And it was a team that I was invited to work with where I think it was 6 or 7 team members, where there was an extreme amount of conflict in the room and standoffs and a couple of powerful tribes, cliques in the team that didn't see eye to eye with the other team members and were not willing to entertain seeing eye to eye with the other team members. So as I was arriving at the team session, what I was aware of was how much they wanted to prove that their cliques were right. And I had gone in with very little preparation or armor. By armor, I mean the stuff I needed to prepare me to feel safe and secure to do the work. I was ready to go in and show up and just work with them. And one of the team members had said to me, oh, we're going to do stuff with colors or with Lego, because we did something like that last year and that was good fun. It'd be nice if we had good fun. And I prepared the ground by saying, no, we're not this time. We're going to really have the conversation that most matters. And within an hour and a half of kicking off this workshop, we'd been through tears. There'd been shouting. One person had tried to storm out and managed to stay in the room. We'd been through a whole range of emotions and human behavior because they were mini volcanoes all waiting to erupt. They'd built up so much frustration inside themselves and so much story and narrative about the situation. This was all pent up there. So I saw my role as a way of releasing the energy around what was pent up by making what was invisible visible. And through the process of creating a really strong container, creating psychological safety, and being brave in terms of how I intervened, not shying away from tears, anger, from people acting out their frustration, a lot of that volcano energy, that volcanic energy was released. And then the rest of the session, the team were really able to process and talk meaningfully about what had been happening. And it was the end of that session that one team member said, Georgina, you're a magician. I had no idea that this was possible.
Yeah. There's so much in that. There's so much in that story. So much to unpack, which I think really speaks to this business of real team coaching or emergent team coaching, as we've come to understand and describe it. But and I think a real nice way to pick up from where we left off in episode 1, so to speak. So in our business, we're fond of saying what's figural for me, right? So what's figural for me, what stands out from all the other things that you've said, what's most visible for me, what's most vivid, is that word bravery that you mentioned, right? And
yes.
to bravely show up. And And I wonder where do we find that bravery? Where does that come from? And there has to be a link there between the bravery and I guess some of the guiding beliefs that we hold about how change happens, why people are the way they are, and beliefs that give us trust in that allow us to trust in the process.
That's a very powerful question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Where did the bravery come from? And I think it's worth exploring. One of the things that first comes to mind for me, sparked by your question, is belief. I believe that magic happens when we can tap into the real, the true, the authentic, the deeper needs of the team. And often that's disguised by behaviors. If somebody had given me a brief and told me what I was likely to encounter, then many coaches would have said, let's use an instrument, let's use an assessment tool to understand our conflict preferences, and let's talk about those and do some exercises around that. I don't believe that would have touched the surface, because it takes us into conceptual thinking and more role play kind of experience and less into the here and now. So my belief is, let's keep it in the here and now. Let's unclutter by not bringing in distractions and tools and shiny things. Let's make it about us and what's happening between us in the here and now. And I trust, because I've had so many experiences again and again, I trust that is transformative. But it requires me to really stand in that place of trust, to build a strong container. It's like I'm putting my arms around the team saying, let's do this, let's stay here, let's be present, let's work through this, and it'll be worth it. So I really believe in the power of emergence. And
that's a belief in and of itself, right? The belief of it'll be worth it. That's very powerful. That's a very empowering kind of belief. It'll be
worth it. And trust the process is another thing I found myself saying all the time. Allow it to emerge. Allow the work to reveal itself. These are powerful ideas that change, for me, how I show up as a coach.
Yeah, I've seen it time and time again. So you're part of a conversation, right, with a team, and you go, well, this is not going anywhere, or I don't see anything happen. But time and time again, there's a point where all of a sudden something does happen. And it's so useful it's that good old see, do, get model, when my beliefs will influence what I do, my behaviors, and my behaviors obviously will get the results that I need to get or that I want to get. And then there's that final loop back from the results that I get in life or in my work that inform how I see things. Yeah. And if you see that happen enough, you really get to this point of, I often find myself saying to myself, just wait for it. Just wait for it. Just wait. It's just around the corner. Something's about to happen. And that's also back to the discomfort perhaps of this business that we're in, because you can see certain team members starting to look at each other. Well, is this going anywhere? Why aren't we doing more productive things right now? And this feels so much slower than my normal day to day. So you need those beliefs to hang on to, or you're going to get the rug pulled right from underneath you.
Yeah. So many of the things we've talked about, like just stay with it, it's just around the corner, are mantras in a way. These are mantras that we say to ourselves that to manage our own anxiety that naturally happens when we're there in a room with a team who are hoping and expecting some change. They're looking to us to manifest that change, and we're looking to them to manifest change.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this is about us holding on to those beliefs. Just as it is, when I trained as an individual coach, one of the hardest beliefs to really get in the bones for me was trust the process. When I started coaching, I'd listen to clients talk about problems and issues. My mind would go into overdrive trying to produce solutions or articles or content they could read, something that would meet their problem, help them solve it. And it took a long while to learn to coach their process, to ask incisive questions, to trust that coaching does the work. And I think it's similar with coaching teams. So beliefs, these mantras, they really support us in doing that work.
One belief that I think that helps me a lot in the work is a belief that life is one big experiment. Now that's a belief, right? It's not a fact. And what matters with facts is whether they're true or not. That's a fact has to be true. A belief doesn't have to be true. I think what matters with beliefs is do they help me? How does this belief serve me? And then of course, if it doesn't serve me, then maybe time to believe something else. Anyway. But this belief of life is one big experiment that really helps me. I came across in team coaching and in life in general, but definitely in team coaching. This is an experiment. I'm not sure how this is going to go. And we can't be. There's this poem I came across. It's a very short poem by the Irish John O'Donoghue, and I think I posted it in our community recently. But it goes something like, "I'd love to live my life like a river flows, constantly surprised by its own unfolding." Surprised by its own unfolding, and I think that's such a lovely way for me to approach this business of emergent team coaching. Let's be surprised by the unfolding of this team, and then the good old Greek philosophers who would say, you never step into the same river twice. And just being comfortable with that. But beliefs like that really, really, really help me show up and then become mantras, I guess, in like, just wait for it and something's bound to happen here. And this, or even a mantra of, whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. It's all, and whatever, or more precisely, whatever happens, I'll be able to work with it.
Yeah.
Whatever happens is going to be useful. Because there's data in everything. There's value in everything. There's learning in everything.
There's so much in what you've said there. I could, what's one of the figures for me is there's data in everything, as you've said. And I'd love to explore that. Maybe we'll come back to that. But right now I'm deeply curious about what you're saying about experiments, and life is one big experiment. Can you say more about how that supports you? What does that bring forward in a way when you're working with a team?
What it brings forward is the ability to let go of certainty, of knowing how things are going to work out. It allows me to show up with a, hey, how about we try this kind of attitude. A presence that says, I don't have all the answers, and neither do you, and we'll never know what works and what doesn't work until we try this. Now, of course, it's not just it's not experimenting. It's not experimentation based on complete ignorance. I guess it's informed experimentation. But it allows me to remain flexible. And to remain in the here and now, to remain in contact with the moment.
Brilliant! I love that. Remain in contact with the moment.
Yeah, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding.
Can you think of on the hoof? Can you think of an example of an experiment that you've experimented with recently?
Yes, an experiment of, for example, just asking the team to break up in pairs and to experiment with some really basic relational mindfulness approaches. Short conversations about helping them be mindful of their experience in the here and now, and sharing that with the person that they were with in that dyad. and then having a quick conversation about how that experience changed them and what the value of really being present to the here and now is. Because we've been talking about how change only happens in the here and now.
That's a great example. Now, how do you plan to do that? What, before you started working with the group? Was that in your design?
But in my mind, experiments are not planned. So experiments are, and I think that's part of the magic of the whole unfolding. It's like where, so obviously I have heard of relational mindfulness before, and I've done a bit of work in relational mindfulness, and I've read about relational mindfulness. So it's part of who I am. But it's not the case of, okay, so today this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to look at, I'm going to teach you about relational mindfulness, and then we'll do that for 20 minutes, and after that I'll break you up in pairs. No, it was just that there was this opportunity to create a bit of insight on behalf of the team, to create a bit of insight, raising awareness and raising responsibility, right? John Whitmore.
Yes.
Right. So there's some insight. Now, what do we do with that insight? Do we just say, oh yeah, nice insight, and let it go? Or do we say, no, let's see what we can do with that insight. Let's experiment with that insight. And if there's a willingness to do that, then of course the next question is, okay, so how do we experiment with it? And then, and I think this is part of the magic of the unfolding, is like all of a sudden this idea pops into your mind that you'd completely forgotten about. Oh yeah, we could do this. I could pull on that.
Yes.
But it could have been anything. It could not anything else, but it could have been another informed kind of experiment.
Yeah. It's not about having the right exercise or activity. It's in response to a clear figure that's emerged from the ground.
Yeah.
Apologies to the listener for the use of language here. But it's important in a way. If you think about the ground as being, let's imagine a picture, a busy picture, like a Salvador Dali painting or something, where there's usually a lot going on. Imagine that picture and then think what stands out for you. When something stands out, everything else becomes ground. What stands out becomes figure. So when we're working emergently, we're tracking what stands out. Now, I can imagine if you're bringing in an experiment around relational mindfulness, what might have been figure was the team not really being in contact with each other, not being attuned to each other.
Yes, and the conversation taking place everywhere except in the here and now.
Yeah.
This endless conversation about, well, but then that happened, and now that, and then tomorrow this other thing's going to happen, and then he or she who's not even here, said this and that. So anything but here and now. So how do we? There was a real figure around how do we stay in the here and now, and what does that even mean? What does that feel like?
Brilliant. So the experiment is crafted in the moment around bringing the team into the here and now. Not with an exercise that is guaranteed to bring them into the here and now, but with an experimental mindset. Let's try this and let's learn from it. Let's see what it shifted. So instead of let's see what the results are, let's see what's shifting. Let's see what we're learning here.
Yeah.
Let's see how this is. I have an example of an experiment, and we're talking about that in working with a team where in observing a team in their own meeting, the chairing of the meeting, the facilitation of the meeting wasn't really supporting the team in having the conversations they most needed to have. And the frustrations were evident and were being suppressed. In other words, people weren't giving voice to it in their team meeting. They were just going through the motions. You could see that in a team of 8 people, 3 people were having the conversation. The rest had checked out. They were fiddling on their phones, getting on with other business, as is often the human way when something's not really captivating our attention. And so the experiment that came up for me was to shift the facilitation role and let somebody else try holding attention to the process for the next 10, 15 minutes. What do we learn from that? What do we like about what the facilitator brought forward? What did that support? What else would you like? What more would you like? Let's rotate again and build in those learnings. And we iterated it throughout a long session across a day where each team member in the end had stepped into that quite challenging and uncomfortable role of facilitating the team, and all the way through this iterative and emergent experiment, they were learning how to relationally be much more in contact with each other and to read the room and to pull out what wasn't being said. And it was a wonderful, sort of extended experiment.
Yeah, and that would not have happened in a facilitated event or in a typical team building, in a sailboat kind of exercise.
And it would be different if I had planned it and said, always in a team coaching session, 2 with teams, I'm going to rotate team leadership or team facilitation. It's a very different orientation, because that way, it might be useful, but it's hit or miss, whether it's really making contact with a need that the team can all see and feel, and we're all in that experience together of the frustration of this not working, and then we're all together in the co-creation of it working.
So I guess what we're really talking about is this notion of that you alluded to of getting certain beliefs in our bones, right?
Yes.
Which is so much of the work and so much of our own, I guess, ongoing development as practitioners, and eventually, I think, the road to mastery. It's all this kind of work that we do on ourselves. And so if I could go back to the story with which you started the episode today of oh my God, you are a magician, or that was magic. Because there's other beliefs, I think, that hide underneath in that story too. So, like, it starts with where the team said to you something along the lines of, "Well, we certainly want to have some fun while we do this." That it's always one of the contracting points, right? In these things, oh yeah, we're just to make sure we have some fun. But there's an unspoken, or I don't know if it was unspoken or not, but there's a real transference of, and there's that word again. Oh, entertain me, you. And there too, I think there's a belief that we can hang on. There's a belief that would really serve us if we're like, I'm not here. I'm not here to entertain. I'm not here to provide fun. I'm not here to to energize you when in that half hour after lunch where you're all dozing off.
Yeah, that's not my role. My role is to support us in attending to what needs to be attended to. And when we do that, often the result is that the team have fun and the energy shifts and they feel great about the work.
Yeah.
Because at some level, everybody's aware that there's patterns or dynamics happening there that are frustrating the team or blocking their effectiveness.
Yeah.
But we don't need to do it by bringing in toys or games or figurines or Lego bricks. They might be useful, but at times they can get in the way because it becomes about the shiny magpie thing of the tool, about the fun of that, and less about what's happening in the here and now. That's easier to see when we're not crowding the space with more stuff.
Yeah.
The content is the team.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. See, that's another beautiful belief. The content is the team. I don't need to bring content. The content's already in the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't even need to bring a team effectiveness diagnostic, because as humans, we know what ineffective feels like. Yeah. If we remove what's ineffective, we're more likely to become effective. If we remove the interference, we're more likely to tap into the potential.
Yeah.
And
and then if you bring that content and if you bring all the exercises and the tools and stuff, then to use that language again, then that becomes figural, and we're no longer in contact with potentially more pressing figures that would arise from the work. And so, yeah. And another thing I liked about the story is that you used the words making the invisible visible. And maybe that's another way of thinking about use of self, of we are the instrument through which that, at least that process is allowed to take place, that process of making the invisible visible.
Yes, I'm so glad you put a highlight over that, because I think that is our work. And this is why a team is best supported by having a coach work with the team. You know, a team can facilitate itself through the process of a team charter or clarifying its purpose or vision and goals. It just needs one team member to step into that facilitation role, the team leader to do that. But what is really hard for team members to do until they really learn to do it is to name the dynamic they're experiencing in the moment. And so what many people do is they act out by withdrawing. They've checked out of the conversation, or they're running thoughts around, God, are we ever going to get to this point? Or I'm not clear on this. But none of that's, if it's not made visible, we can't work with it. And it takes courage. It requires us to be brave. So we need these mantras to support us, to give us something to hold on to that says to us, well, you can do it. You can give voice to this. You can illuminate what's not yet evident to the team. Powerful work. And when we do, of course, magic happens, because something suddenly appears that wasn't accessible to them.
Fascinating work. And as we're discovering, not always easy, sometimes potentially really uncomfortable. And so we'll talk more about things that can help us show up in the way that we need to show up. But
Yes.
but I hope that in today's episode, people are starting to get a sense of what it actually looks like, and how, and that notion of us being the instrument at the center. The self as instrument at the center of this technology for change, so to speak.
Hey, Al, before we wrap, I have an idea. How about we offer our listeners an experiment? And as we're talking about experiments here, and the experiment I want to offer is that you really think about what for you gets in your way of making what's invisible visible with a team. Perhaps just think about that, and think about what mantras could you include in your stance that would support your use of self as an instrument. What would you need to believe or hold on to?
Yeah.
To be able to
lovely experiment.
Make that visible.
And let us know what you come up with.
That'd be great.
We'll see you real soon for episode 3.
Fantastic. See you soon.
Bye for now. Thanks for joining today's journey of Teams Transformed.
If this sparked a new insight or a deeper question, we invite you to sit with it, not to solve it, but to let it unfold.
For resources, community, and reflection prompts, visit teamcoachingstudio.com.
Until the next time, stay present, stay curious, and keep leaning into the art of emergence.